Welcome to another episode of the Caregivers Compass, where we guide you through the journey of aging, caregiving, and life's most important transitions. I'm Virginia Webb, a senior care and transition strategist, a licensed realtor, and the founder of Compass Senior Care Advisors.
And I'm Crystal Gadet, Director of Clinical Quality and Program Development, here to help you understand the care side so you can make confident, informed decisions. Together, we help families navigate senior care, housing options, and the emotional decisions that come with it. So you don't have to do it alone. Let's get into today's topic.
Today's topic is hospice. Why are so many people afraid of it? And today, our focus is on the caregiver. When families hear the word hospice, they immediately feel fearful.
They think it means giving up or that death is happening soon or it's imminent, but that's not the full picture.
Today, we're having an honest conversation about hospice, what it is, what it isn't, and why so many people are afraid of it.
And if you have stuck with us through the first two episodes of this, you have met our special guest, Ms. Shawn Jenkins, who is a hospice liaison with a plethora of knowledge on hospice, here to educate us on the hospice. On hospice for both the caregiver and the individual. But right now we are going to focus on the on the caregiver, as you know, we all focus on the individual and we love our hospice patients and residents, but who takes care of the caregivers? So Shawn will help us dive into that and just what that looks like.
So, Shawn, our first question, we're focusing in on the caregivers. We've touched on it a little bit here and there. The first two episodes, we talked about what hospice does in the home, but there's still a responsibility of the caregiver. We even touched on the statement that caregiver burnout is real. And so I wanted to take some time to, one, let the caregiver know that we see you, right? We are here to support you, and we want to make sure that you are aware of all the solutions and the resources that you have for you. So, one of my first questions is, how does hospice support the caregiver emotionally? I know we've talked about it, touched on it a little bit, but I wanted to bring that back up.
Yes, so emotionally, hospice puts our chaplain in place. And so the chaplain, talks to the caregiver, just kind of see where they are. The social worker as well, but the chaplain plays a very big part in not just like preaching or praying, but seeing where you are, seeing how are you handling this, seeing, just your emotional side and stability. Aside from the chaplain, and people don't really think about it much, as we provide volunteers. And so a volunteer can come in and be that extra companionship with you. And not just for your loved one. I've had a volunteer, because I said I was a volunteer coordinator first. I've had a volunteer, she would go, the patient was pretty unresponsive. And so she was going mainly to be there with the daughter. She would help the daughter with minor organization, or she'll help her with laundry. She'll help her. And that in itself kind of help with the emotional burden, with the physical burden of just daily life while caring for your loved one. And so hospice brings in volunteers. We bring in social workers and chaplains to try to meet you where you are, depending on what need you're showing you need the most.
Wow. And really quickly, can you reiterate, since we're in a new episode, about the respite support? I thought that was phenomenal, that a lot of people don't know that they have access to.
Yes, definitely. So respite, so going back to that caregiver burnout, respite care is basically you get 5 days a month where you can have your loved one on their own vacation while you go and take a brain break, mental break, or a vacation of your own. And what that looks like is we arrange transportation. We get your loved one to a facility that we're contracted with, that they'll take care of, love on, do all of the things that you would normally do so that you can have a break. And hospice pays for that 100%. So you can go and just reset and then, do it again every month if you need to. But 5 days a month, you can go and take a break. And that's very important because caregiver burnout is real. You can love your loved one all that you want. And I've seen it. I've just being a volunteer coordinator and going in firsthand with and talking to the loved ones. I've had them cry to me, and I love my mom, and I don't want anyone to feel like I'm not grateful, or that, I don't want to care for her, but I'm tired. That is real. And so that respite care is golden because it gives you that break, and it's much needed.
Yeah. And if you can't take care of yourself, then you can't take care of your loved one.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the heavy part, let's say now the loved one has passed. Just what does that look like? What does support look like for the family dealing with that transition?
For the family, we give 13 months of bereavement support. And so what that looks like is, we're constantly checking on you. We're sending a chaplain to you, whatever it is that you need. We're talking to you, keeping up with you on a regular basis. So we never want to be a pest. We want to give you that time to grieve, but we are here when you need us. We're here to say, hey, how's things going? Because, once the funeral passes and, you know, the casket closes, people tend to like say, oh, okay, life goes to normal for everybody outside of that home, everybody outside of that loved one. But for the one that was closest to them and taking care of them, that's when it gets more real, weeks down the line or a few months down the line. And we want to be there. Hey, I know mom passed 2 months ago, but we want to see how you're doing now. Is there anything that we can do for you now? We position ourselves to say, hey, we're still here for you for 13 months. And we've never had someone after 13 months be like, okay, you're 13 months up. No, if you continue to need us, we will be there for you. And so that's our bereavement support that we give with hospice.
Okay.
Okay, so what advice would you give a caregiver who feels overwhelmed? We touched on it a little bit in making the decision. Um, they're overwhelmed, period. Now they're introduced with this option. So now they have a sense of overwhelm on top of their everyday feeling of overwhelm.
And making a decision
Making a decision for hospice.
for hospice.
I'm trying to paint the picture of
Yes.
the caregiver. They're already overwhelmed. They're
You're already
probably
over.
living in a state of fight or flight already. And
Yes.
so now they're having to make this overwhelming decision.
Yes. Just, ask the questions or allow yourself, if you don't know the questions to ask, because that's the thing. Some people don't know the questions to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Allow someone to come and at least just talk to you and paint the picture of what that will look like for you and your family. Just see what your needs are. Having a conversation does not guarantee that your loved one will be on hospice. It doesn't mean like, oh, you had this conversation with me, now you have to sign the dotted line right here. It's not like that. And so if you're already overwhelmed and dealing with your loved one or caring for your loved one, I won't say caring for your loved one is already a lot for you to do, and you've noticing the declines. You're noticing how hard it's getting for you to transfer your loved one to their chairs or get them showers. Reach out and say, hey, I just want to learn more about hospice. I want to learn more about what that would look like for us. Could hospice work for my situation? It's just a conversation, and from there we can paint that picture, see where you are, and tell you what we can do for you and your loved one, and just go from there. And so the biggest thing is just reaching out and just, hey, I just want to know more about that. What can you do for us?
Nice. So, our next segment will jump into some practical and financial questions. But before we do that, for our viewers, just if this video is helping you just understand hospice differently, share it with someone, share it with everyone, especially those who you feel like may need it. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And you can also comment hospice if you'd like a caregiver guide on just how to go through this comfort care and support. Make sure to subscribe for more conversations around just navigating caregiving in general and just giving you that confidence to get through some of life's most difficult challenges, especially when it comes to caring for a loved one. So make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And let's dive right back into some of our questions.
Awesome. So let's talk about a little finance. You've mentioned it before with who pays for hospice. I know you mentioned Medicare, but what other options are there to be able to pay for hospice? I'm going to lump this all in one question. What other options is it to pay for hospice, and are there any out-of-pocket costs?
Yeah, so the options to pay for hospice, besides Medicare, Medicaid, we also take private insurances. Now, that's where a lot of us differ because you have some that take more than others. And so we take private insurances, VA insurance like TRICARE, um, some of the marketplace plans. It just depends. So what it is if you have questions about your insurance, we have our own verification team. So you'll never get hit with a bill. We won't come there and start giving you all of these services and then say, oh, wait, that wasn't covered. You have this bill to pay. We'll never do that. So we'll run your insurance, tell you what you qualify for, and go from there. If you don't qualify, then we say, hey, you don't qualify, but with us, but this particular hospice, they do take, X, Y, and Z insurance. And so private insurance is definitely usable as well. And your second question,
Out of pocket.
out of pocket costs.
Yeah.
And so the hospice covers all the medications related to the illnesses. So if you have something that is unrelated that you want to keep, that will be the only thing. If you have I want to keep taking my B12 shots, you'll have to pay for it, stuff like that. But everything is 100% covered related to your illness. So that's any medical equipment. If you have a bedside commode, shower chairs, the bed, oxygen, what is it, the suctions, anything that you need related to your illness is 100% covered. There's a very minimal out-of-pocket cost, and that's if you want to keep something that's unrelated and use just like vitamin supplements or things like that they've been used to taking, and it's not anything that's helping, so to say. But a lot of times we can kind of put those in depending on how it's worded as far as comfort wise. And what I mean by that is like if you have COPD or congestive heart failure and you're taking, I don't know, just something, but it's giving you comfort, it's making you not feel something as much, it may be covered because it's giving you some type of comfort.
Yeah. Like what I can think of right now for COPD in particular, let's say one of those like breathing machines may not be covered, but it can technically be seen as like a medical supply. Like that's kind of like, to help with that shortness of breath.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are going to get into some powerful closing questions. First being, what is one thing you wish that every family knew about hospice? Like if you had to think of one, or it could be an overarching umbrella, just what is one thing you wish that families knew about hospice?
The biggest thing I want families to know is that it's not giving up, because that's the biggest thing. I'm giving up on my dad. I'm giving up. It's not giving up. It's choosing comfort. It's choosing dignity. It's choosing an extra layer of support. That is the biggest thing because all hesitations, the majority of hesitations lies under that umbrella of, my thought process. So It's not giving up. It's extra support.
All right. And then how can families start the conversation about hospice with their loved one?
I think the best way to start the conversation would be to paint the benefit first. You know, it's hard to say, Mama, I think you need hospice. What? You know, I always say that because it's a hard word. And it's just because of how we thought of it. And so I think painting the benefit, Mom, I I think you could use some extra support. How does it sound for a nurse to come at least like once a week instead of us having to run you over to the doctor's office so often? Or, how about, we have an aide come and kind of help groom you and things like that, and help us with you, and paint the benefit. And then, well, I was looking, and I've seen all of these things are a benefit under hospice, and you don't need to be on your deathbed to receive them. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about someone coming and talk to us more about it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think painting, and it's not being deceptive, but it's how it's perceived, how you present it. And so if I say hospice first, you shut down. A lot of people will shut down. Like, I don't want to hear about that. I'm not there yet. That's what we get a lot. I'm not there yet. No. But when you paint the benefit first, this is what you'll get. This is what you'll receive. This is how it'll help. Um, I've I've found out that all of this is covered in hospice, and it's 100% covered. And you don't have to be on your deathbed to receive it. How do you feel about having someone come here to talk to us about that? You get life insurance and you're not about to die. And someone comes and talks to us about life insurance.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
And
That's
so,
good. That's really good. I didn't even think about that. I know I've had one person where I had the patient have the conversation with family because the patient was tired and she was like, I'm in so much pain. I'm tired of being poked and probed at and all of this aggressive treatment. But my daughter just won't let go. She's just like, I just can't get it through her head. And so I just told her, I said, well, instead of framing it as the word hospice to your daughter, how about you let her know, hey, you know, my grandkids are close because her grandkids live close by, and you, who is the daughter, are close by. And I just kind of want to just take something for this pain, but also just live some time with, just with you guys. Not saying that this is the end, but I just don't want to be poked at and probed at and just going to the doctor every couple minutes and all. It's just too much. I would just like to spend some time with you guys and just see where it goes from there. And the daughter was very receptive after hearing it framed in that way.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, on that note of that beautiful story, I do want to end with maybe taking a moment. Can you share a story where hospice made a meaningful difference in a client that you can remember? I know you're the liaison, and you're not necessarily everyday hands-on, but maybe you have a story of a meaningful difference that hospice made in the family's life.
Yeah, it was actually one where it was my first time going to someone's house. I usually go, to the facilities, or I have the conversation other places, but they were like, can you really, come to the house? This patient, and she's passed now. But she would not move. She had, I want to say it was cancer, but it was bulging out of her back, kind of. And the family, they didn't want to hear it. They didn't want her to sign a DNR. The patient was ready. It's kind of like your story. The patient was ready. She wanted it. She was like, I thought about this long, and I'm tired. I'm tired, and she didn't want to do anything. But when hospice came in, we bought the equipment after they agreed. It took a while. I wound up having to meet with all the family, end up coming one by one, and then we had this conversation. And when the hospice came in, and I was there when the admission nurse came, and the equipment, I was there when the equipment came. I was there got nighttime by the time I left, but I was there when everything showed up. And from the moment when I walked in the house to the moment before, by the time I left, she was like a different person. She had been pepped up. She had been they say she hadn't been moving. She hadn't been trying to walk. She hadn't been doing anything. But this equipment came. She had a walker. She had a chair she could use, but she didn't use the chair. She got herself to the bathroom, and they kind of stood behind her, helping her, and it kind of pepped her up. And she had been sleeping on the sofa. She had been sleeping on the sofa because it was too hard to get completely in her bed, and she had been sleeping on the sofa. So we got her in her new hospital bed, and it can raise up and she's comfortable, and it brightened her up. And from that on, I actually kept up with them a little bit and would call and check and say, just making sure, just seeing how things are going. And she was like, my mom asked if you could bring her some shoes, and I said, well, I'll check and see if I could see if someone would donate some shoes and see what size shoes she wear or whatever. But it's just her whole spirit, like she brightened up, and that showed me she was just toughening it out at first. Laying on the sofa, dealing with the pain, seeing her face grimace every time she moved, and just seeing a nurse come in and everything come in, it just brightened her up. Like, it gave me like hope, not hope that her disease is about to go away, but just hope to keep pushing until tomorrow, keep pushing until the day after, keep pushing for. And she just livened up. She eventually passed because her cancer was pretty advanced, but even her daughter, she thanked me afterwards. She thanked me and she said, I didn't want you to come in here at first. I said, I know. And she was like, yeah, but she was like, I know she needed it, and y'all really did help her or whatever. So that's a story that I hold on to. And there's so many where all family at the end, because Bristol Hospice has like a great Google reviews. And so families all the time come and say, we're so glad that you came and you made this difference or that difference, or your nurse was so wonderful and she felt like part of the family, or they'll call and ask for the nurse to come to the funeral, once the patient does pass. But that particular instance, I was actually there at the house when everything started, and I just kept up with them. And so it just pepped her up, and she was able to live instead of just exist until she passed away. And so it was beautiful. Yeah,
that's beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Sean, for just all of your beautiful insight. Thank you for just showing our viewers that hospice isn't about giving up, but it's about shifting the goal from from curing and aggression to some just comfort. I'm sure a lot of people will benefit from this information.
And it's making sure that your loved one is cared for with dignity, with peace and support. So thank you again for your time, for these interviews. They have been very informative. Again, if you want more information about Bristol Hospice, comment Bristol in the comments, and we'll get your information to Sean. And also, if this video has helped you in any way, please share this with someone in need. Share with everyone. You never know who's in need, right? And then also, if you would like our caregiver guide on comfort, support, comment hospice in our comments, and we will get that to you. And then lastly, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And thank you again for this episode of the Caregivers Compass.